Welcome to the Simply Vegan podcast with me, Holly Johnson, and my co-host, Gabriella Clark. Each week, we'll be bringing you all the latest vegan news, as well as interviews with some of the top names in veganism. Hello, Gabriella, how are you?
Hi, Holly. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm really good today. I'm feeling hopeful for the future. I must say this year has been very taxing on my mental health, as I'm sure it has been for, people all over the world. But to hear today that they've got a 90% success rate vaccine for coronavirus is very exciting and certainly cheered me up a little bit.
Yeah, what a leap, especially as we're week one of lockdown 2. It's nice to have that sort of news as we endure our second lockdown.
Yeah, it just gives you a bit of hope for next year, doesn't it?
Definitely that, and the fabulous news that has come out of the US.
Yes. Obviously don't want to get too political, but the news that Biden is looking to rejoin the Paris Agreement on climate change as one of his first jobs is definitely something else that's made me truly happy.
Lots of positive things in the news, which is rather unusual for 2020, I would say. So we should ride the high while it's there.
We should, yeah. As always, every week we discuss the weekly news, don't we? So I thought we'd perhaps talk about the news that the UK Health Alliance on Climate Change are calling for a climate tax to be put on meat by 2025. And also looking at the labelling of food, so that like we get warnings for, this is high in sugar or high in fat, we could have labelling on food that warns us about its impact on the climate. What do you think about this?
I think it's fabulous, especially the labelling. I think being able to see that in that kind of black and white way, the impact the food you are buying is having on the environment. Many people, I'm sure, know that to some extent the meat and dairy industry is having an impact on the environment, but are they thinking about that when they're just doing their weekly shop? Probably not. But then being able to see it on the packaging might be enough of a trigger for people to think, you know what, I'm going to buy an alternative, whether that's a vegan alternative or just completely choose something else or something with a lower impact. I think it's brilliant. And I do think it's the sort of messaging that A, will be effective, and B, it's completely time for as well.
I completely agree with the labelling. I think that's a fantastic idea. Just to, obviously when you're shopping, like you say, you're just trying to get it done, aren't you? Especially with coronavirus around. The last thing you're perhaps thinking is about, the climate crisis. But with just having that labelling there would really sort of trigger you to think, to be more aware of your choices. With the tax, it's a tricky one. I guess you could look at lower income families and say, are they going to be worse off with a tax like this in place? I mean, obviously we discussed, I think it was last week, wasn't it, the lower priced range at Aldi, which is great. Things like the vegan chicken nuggets and fish fingers for 99p. So I think, if a tax is going to be in place, we need to make sure there are those plant-based alternatives at a good, affordable price for lower income families.
Completely agree, because for some people, as you say, making it, to some extent, it's a privilege to be able to make the decision to buy something that doesn't have an impact on the climate. So I think the labeling is good for people who are able to make that choice. But like you say, the tax, I have no doubt it's going to be controversial. And I completely agree with you. Lots of factors need to work together to make sure, if the tax is there to reduce consumption of meat to protect the environment, great. But also then protecting lower income families or people who can't afford to be making those decisions, giving them more climate friendly options at a budget friendly price.
Yeah, I guess it's about education as well, isn't it? Because, a lot of people know that the impact that meat has on the climate, but a lot of people out there don't. And I think, you know, the more we can get that into mainstream media, the better.
I think it's a really interesting point, and I'd be really interested to see the way in which they will label it, because I think the way in which nutrition, you know, with our traffic light system, to some extent that's very easy to read. You can easily work out the calories, saturated fat, salt, sugar. It's very easy to see when it's high and low. So I'd be very interested to see how they manage that message in a way that is informative and does what it needs to do, but isn't controversial or alienating, as I think sometimes is the danger.
Yeah, it would be great, wouldn't it, just to see, you know, perhaps a 1 to 5 kind of rating on the foods that you're buying, because I think even if you are vegan, and even if you are constantly educating yourself on the impact of whatever food you buy, even if it's not meat, it could be nuts from, you know, almonds from California, or, you know, it just helps the consumer, doesn't it? Because we're all time poor and we just don't have time to research every single product that we buy. So that would be fantastic.
I think that's a really interesting point as well, that it's easy to think you'll just slap a big red cross on meat and dairy, but actually there's other products that have an impact, like you say, things like almonds. So applying it across all food groups, all categories, would help everybody make a better informed choice. And, you know, like I say, I do think we're at the point where we need to be making better choices before it does become even more of a climate emergency than it already is. But again, respect that in some ways it is a privilege to be able to make that decision for some families. I think as well, I was reading the article and there was a line that stood out to me that said, you know, coronavirus has taken over our lives this year, but coronavirus will pale into insignificance compared to some of the effects of climate change that we expect to see in the very near future. And when you put it like that, I mean, there's no doubt that everybody has been really extremely affected by this virus, whether you've lost your job, you've lost a relative, you've not been able to see a family member as often as you were. You know, there's been so many impacts that to think that something can come along and have even greater an impact is terrifying. And if there's ways that we can prevent this, I'm sure most people, if not all, will want to.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully it'll add momentum to the campaign, you know, for action on climate crisis, is the phrase they're using now, isn't it?
Quite.
Some more slightly depressing news was that of 17 million mink in Denmark being culled because coronavirus was spreading and mutating amongst them. Obviously, we don't want to depress all our listeners today, but
we
I think
started on such a high. Look where we've come to.
What's happened?
I know,
but you know, again, if there's anything good that can come out of such a horrific situation, and, you know, I just cannot comprehend 17 million mink, you know, all in cages. I mean, you just, with Denmark, you think of it as being quite a progressive country, you know, to think that they're still operating a fur industry on this scale is quite shocking, I think, for a lot of people.
I have to say as well, and I mean, maybe it's as a result of the sort of media that I choose to consume, but I'm really continue to be surprised by the fact that there is such a demand for the fur industry. I seem, every time I see a big fashion brand or a label coming out with a fur item, the backlash is so huge, and I feel like I see more brands coming out and saying we only work with faux fur or fake fur, we have a commitment not to use real fur. So maybe it's just my naivety, but I'm so surprised there's still that level of demand. I mean, 17 million in just one country must be such a small size of what's going on as well. It's really shocking.
Yeah, as I was saying, hopefully this will, you know, bring awareness yet again to the problems of, cramming millions of animals into cages and close confinement and the spread of these diseases. I'm just so passionate about ending things like this, factory farming, transportation of live animals. It's something that really kind of gets me fired up. So I think at least one good thing can come out of it is that it is coming into the mainstream media and people are waking up and having their eyes open to what is going on. And, hopefully we can start to bring an end to it.
I agree. I think half of the battle is making sure that news is heard, and most, if not all, people would be shocked to hear of that. And I'd be hard pushed to find anyone who could justify the culling of 17 million animals to justify something as frivolous as an item of clothing. So yeah, completely agree. Just having that sort of news make the mainstream media is hopefully going to be really effective, really powerful.
So the last piece of news we were going to discuss today is the court case that Oatley have been involved in. No, it's not straightforward as ever. So it's basically relating to their tagline, isn't it?
So their tagline that they are looking or have applied for trademark for, which has been denied, is "It's like milk but made for humans."
Yeah. So I think the ruling has been that people already know that milk is for calves, so they shouldn't be allowed to use it. However, I don't know how I feel about this. Obviously, if you think about it, sit down and think about it, that cow's milk is for calves, but actually, how conscious are people of that? I really don't think that it's in your mind when you are buying cow's milk in a supermarket.
If anything, as well, I think there's a stronger association with drinking milk and being a human baby.
Yeah.
When I think about drinking milk or somebody buying milk to drink, maybe not in adding it to a hot drink, I always think about a human baby or a child, and actually that would be my first connotations, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So whilst yes, I'm sure everybody knows the fact on paper that primarily milk that comes out of a cow is for a baby cow, but is that the first place your mind goes? Probably not.
Before I went vegan, I just didn't think about it at all. You just go in and you buy your cow's milk, and the choice is whether you're going to go for I think it was red skimmed, blue was full fat. And they were literally my considerations. I was completely ignorant to the whole industry. My mum lives near to an agricultural college in Dorset, and they obviously have farm animals there. And as you go sort of down the road, you can see all the calves. They're all in a shed together, and they're just sitting there. It's sort of, there's sort of an eerie silence as you walk past, and
So sad.
it just hits home that they have been taken away from their mothers so that their mothers can be milked endlessly so that we can drink their milk. It's
bizarre when you think about it. I mean, I have to say, I think the tagline from Oatley is quite provocative, and I really like that. Personally, I've been buying less and less from Oatley because of their recent investment revelations. I imagine that's a subject for another day.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing their advertising when I used to work in London and commute a lot. I used to commute through King's Cross Station, and they took over an entire corridor of the underground at King's Cross with their advertising. So huge billboards, huge big advertising banners as you walked through the tunnel, and it was all using their slogan about saying, it's milk but made for humans. And I think I was newly vegan at the time, actually, but I like it. I think it's provocative. It makes people stop. And yes, this court case is arguing that consumers know cow's milk is for calves, but like you say, that isn't your immediate thought. And I kind of like where it encourages you to take your thoughts and maybe question it. And yes, it's provocative, but for some of the big brands playing in plant-based or vegan food and drink, I kind of feel like it's their role to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And if consumers already know that, then what's the problem with using it as their tagline?
Yeah, no, I agree.
We're hoping to taste test some cheese next week, which will be lovely.
I cannot tell you how excited I am about taste testing vegan cheese. I think I've probably mentioned vegan cheese almost every episode. And it really is. I am on a constant mission to find the greatest of vegan cheeses. So short of sitting next to my letterbox since we heard it was on its way, I am very excited to try this.
Oh, that should be a good episode then. We'll both both get the crackers out and give it a try in time for Christmas.
It's a hard job, Holly, but someone's got to do it.
Exactly. Next up, I speak to vegan athlete and director of Fry's Family Foods, Tammy Fry Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, good morning. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, so you're joining us all the way from Australia?
Yes, yeah.
Lovely.
All the way from sunny coast of Australia.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I know, we're so fortunate. It's a beautiful place to live, and especially now with COVID, we're pretty lucky over here. Life is almost as per normal, it's
really?
Almost, everybody's just doing their thing. We haven't had any cases in the state for a while. So we're very, very lucky.
Oh, that's amazing. We've just gone into our second lockdown, so
let's hope for a better 2021 though. I mean,
definitely, yeah.
Hopefully the worst of it's over.
So I'll start by mentioning a few of your credentials because it's quite a long list. So you're director of Fry's Family Foods, nutritionist, public speaker, karate champion, and you run your own blog. So what's a typical day like for you?
It's pretty hectic, but no more hectic than I think everybody in today's world is busy. It's just one of those things. So my typical day is getting up at about 5:30, and I take my children surfing. So we spend a lot of time. They're both very keen surfers, or frothers, as you call them here in Grom frothers, that you call them in Australia. So I take them down to the beach early. It's always a good start for me. I've read the 5 a.m. club, so I'm a big fan of that, getting up early and getting an early start. And then, just a typical breakfast. I suppose I'm very health conscious, so it's usually a smoothie of some sort. And then I start work around 9 to about 1. And then I take a short break around lunchtime and do my home chores, and usually make dinner. If I haven't already batch cooked on the weekend, I'll make dinner. And then I'm really working again from about 3 p.m. Onwards to maybe midnight or 11 p.m. most days. So working across time zones is obviously a little challenging at times. But, I still consider myself lucky. We're in an amazing space. I get to do what I love every day. I get to live my purpose. And that's a lot more than other people can say right now. So I'm just grateful.
Yeah. Oh, sounds fantastic, but very busy. So what led you to train as a nutritionist?
Well, I think my interest in nutrition started when I was quite young, actually, probably around age 15 or 16, because I was an athlete already at that time. I was already doing maybe 3 or 4 hours of training every single day. So quite unlike most teenage girls. And I was doing karate, which is a pretty intense martial art. So Yeah, I started to, you know, a lot of people were judging the fact that I was plant-based, and that they thought that I would get more strength if I was eating a omnivore diet. And so I started dabbling in different diets, fads, and really doing my research in terms of proteins, amino acids, supplementing. And I was determined to make it, because there was no ways that I was like, I've been a very passionate vegetarian in my early years and later vegan, you know, and there was no way I was going to eat animals or animal products. So it just wasn't going to happen. And at the same time, I really wanted to be successful in my sport, because I realized that that was the way I was going to inspire other people to change. Because I don't believe that you can change a person's diet as such, or that you can get people to change just by sharing, you know, information about animal rights issues or about the environment. It really needs some sort of inspiration for somebody to move over and to change their habits, which is so difficult to do. So I knew that in order to change people, I would have to be very successful in my sport. And I drove myself very hard to achieve that. And eventually did represent my country for many years in the senior national team at many international events. And I think that's when I actually saw it working. You know, people started asking me about what I was eating. Like, what are you eating? How are you getting results? So I saw this big change and shift from my early days where I was being criticized to later on when I was successful. People were asking me, how did you do it? You know, what are you eating? So that's where my nutrition interest started. And then it's just grown from there. I've been, you know, yeah, I'm a bit of a nutrition geek, I suppose.
I've become a little bit like that since going vegan. So you were raised as a vegetarian then, but your father was a meat farmer.
Yeah, he was a goat farmer in South Africa, and he was raising goats for slaughter. And selling them to the community. But there's a lot of, in South Africa, goats are killed for ritual slaughter and offerings and things like that. And so he was selling the goats. Yeah. And I mean, I was very, like, I was born to just love animals and protect them. And so I would name members of the goats, and because they had a name, they had now crossed over from being, you know, a unit of currency to a pet. And I would have all these goats that were named, and would fight really hard for them not to be slaughtered. So, you know, it didn't cause problems. I think my father's always been a very conscious human being, and always willing to learn. And I think he learned a lot, maybe from me as his daughter, because he was open to change. And he started to inquire about his own belief system, because he grew up a South African farmer and who ate meat 3 times a day, and who believed that you needed meat to be strong and healthy. And so there were times where he would say, you really need to eat steak because you need to be strong and healthy. But later he did change. And that's where fries actually started. That's how fries started. It was in our kitchen, trying to replicate meat to make his transition easier. So it wasn't actually about this being a commercial project. It was to make our family's plant-based lifestyle easier. Right. That we would get all our nutrition, we'd get all our protein that we needed, all our amino acids, without having to make life difficult. You know, it just had to be easy, simple, fast, convenient, and you could still stand at a barbecue and put something on the barbecue instead of standing at the salad table. This is a long time ago. This is going back to 1989. So he was definitely a pioneer.
Yeah.
In the plant-based space. I think fries was one of the first plant-based meat products available.
Yeah. So it was your mum that was the vegetarian.
My mum was also a vegetarian.
What was it he was experimenting then in those early days? What foods was he using to kind of create meat replacements?
Well, you know, he had no food knowledge, so he wasn't a scientist. He was just passionate about finding his own personal solutions. And he would go to the health shop and buy a few things from the health shop where all the hippies were hanging out. You know, he was going there And he was buying a few spices and different ingredients and wheat gluten and soy protein, and he was bringing them home and he was mixing them in our Kenwood Chef, like mixer. We had some AMC cooking pots where and a 2-plate burner. And he would actually start, just mixing ingredients and testing different recipes and trial and error and tasting and trial and error, until he started to get something that actually resembled a little bit like meat. And he just got more and more excited about it. And our first range of products was our original burger, braai sausage, which is like a barbecue sausage, a traditional sausage, and a hot dog. And those 4 products are actually still on the shelves in South Africa selling. So developed, in our home kitchen back in 1989 with nothing but a mixer and a few basic, kitchen tools. So it's amazing how the story's progressed from there, to now, where we have 50, 60 product SKUs across 27 countries, mainstream retail like Sainsbury's and Tesco's, Morrison's, and Ocado. And so, it's changed a lot.
At what point did you go vegan then?
Holly, it would have been, at least, I don't have a veganuary. So a lot of people have got a veganuary. So for me, it was just a transition, and it was a natural transition, because I think as you inquire, and I've got an inquiring mind, so as you inquire and you gain more knowledge and you're open to learning and you're open to changing, you naturally, when you know better, you do better. And when I knew better, I did better. And so probably 10 years ago, about 10 years ago. So quite a long time ago, but up to there, I was living in South Africa. We didn't even have soy milk, or there were no alternatives. And I think because there were none available, I never inquired, and so it's a funny thing that now that there are more plant-based meats available, and that vegan is such an easy step to take, and the transition is very simple, and you don't have to give up really anything. It's allowing people to start looking at animal agriculture for what it is, and saying, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with the way we raise animals. I don't necessarily agree that the diet that we've been on and that our belief system, they're starting to challenge things that they've grown up with, because there are options now.
I mean, the market has changed so much in the past 20 years, hasn't it? I mean, what changes have you seen with the business?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, I was standing at school in a classroom with all my classmates, being the only vegetarian in a school of about 1,000 girls, and having my classmates pray for me because it was against the principles of the Bible to be vegetarian. To today, where this is actually a trend, and people are really excited about looking at plant-based foods and understanding how nourishing they are and how beautiful they are, and diverse and beautiful recipes that you can make. So there's definitely a massive shift. I mean, for fries, 20 years ago, we were still doing what we're doing now, but now we're doing it on a much bigger scale, because we've seen incredible growth every year. Not because we've had the huge marketing budgets that some of the other big corporate companies have, but because we produce really good tasting food, ethically, and with a set of values that align with our own as people, as a family. And so people have really supported us. They've been so loyal to us, and we've just grown from strength to strength. Now, in 2020, we've recently been acquired by the Live Kindly Collective, and that's allowed us to really scale up our production, treble our outputs, bring in technologies that we didn't have access to before. And it's really exciting, because you're going to see so many amazing things from Fry's over the next 12, 24 months. And I just can't wait to bring those products to market, the more sustainable packaging to market, and help more people to make this shift to a more conscious and compassionate way of life.
Oh, I'm really excited to see what you're going to be bringing out. What are your most popular vegan products?
Well, we've got probably 50 or 60 different product SKUs, but I think some of the original products are still popular just because they were there first. But we're seeing now with some of our new product launches, like our big fried burger, which is amazing. It's such an incredible product. I think it's up there. If it's not the best, it's one of the best burgers in the world. It sizzles just like meat. We're using new technology again. It has incredible mouthfeel. It's just a very advanced and a replica of meat. And then, of course, our nuggets are famous all over the world. People love our nuggets. And then our sausage rolls as well. Our sausage rolls do very, very well all over the world, the schnitzels. And even we're seeing a really good growth with our fishless fillets, because I think the seafood, people that are becoming more aware of the state of the ocean and the ecosystem and the degradation. And so they're starting to look around for seafood alternatives. So our fish is also growing very nicely, and we're seeing a lot more interest in that space, which I'm very thankful for, because that's a major passion of mine, is the ocean and protecting the ocean.
Yeah, I really like the fishless fillets. They're really good.
Oh, thank you.
And you estimate you've saved 21,000 fish this year?
Oh, it's a lot more than that, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that, but it would be a lot more than that. It would be in the millions, probably around 3 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing to think that, we can have those kind of impacts if people are choosing plant-based foods over meat products. And that's how we measure our success every single year, is in the number of animals' lives that we save. Because for us, that's our measure of success. We were never set up as a company. We were never there with the mission of being profitable. Our mission was very different, and we always place principles before profits. It's our mantra. It's up on our wall in our office, is to make principled decisions, and not decisions purely based on if it's a profitable decision or not. So we're a little unorthodox in that way, but I think that's what makes us unique and special and authentic.
That's such a wonderful way to measure success. How many animals you've saved. I love that. So it's a real family company, isn't it? So as sort of new generations have been born, they've kind of come into the company as well.
Yeah, well, my mum and dad are actually still involved in some way, but it's definitely a second generation business now. I head up the global brand, and then my sister Hayley is involved with the NPD. She's heading up NPD for the Live Kindly Collective. And then Sean, my brother-in-law, he's also involved as the GM for Australia. So yeah, it's very much, the family are all very much involved still. We're still driving our mission. We're lucky to be with the Live Kindly Collective, who share our vision and our mission, and just want to help take the brand that next level. So yeah, it's I would say it's 100% second generation now, and hopefully the third generation joins soon. I know my son is absolutely passionate about animals, and he asked me, when does David Attenborough going to retire, because he thinks that might be quite a nice job to have. So the dreams of 8-year-olds.
Oh, I love that. That's so lovely.
It's a big dream, but he's very, very passionate about animals and wildlife and farm animals and rescuing animals. So let's see. Hopefully he does join.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So tell us about your work with Veganuary.
Well, for us, I've been working and supporting Veganuary since their inception, which would have been 6 or 7 years ago now. And I've been an ambassador for the campaign for that long. It's I think Veganuary is a phenomenal concept. It's a great timing. People have this really gluttonous kind of December, eating and drinking too much, and it's a really great time to kind of reset your diets, consider trying new things. and exploring plant-based foods. So we worked with Veganuary from the very beginning, even when there was only a couple of hundred people signing up, just because we knew that this was a great way to advocate. It's also not a high expectation. We're not asking everybody to go vegan forever. We're lowering the bar of entry to veganism, and I think that's a great form of advocacy. And I think if you expect people to do everything, they'll usually do nothing. I always say perfection is the enemy of advocacy. So Veganuary is a nice little gray area. You can dabble in it, you can give it a go, and then you can decide if it's for you or not. And Veganuary have statistics that they release every year, and they're finding that I think 73% of people who do Veganuary actually stay vegan. So that's incredible to get that kind of results. I mean, imagine 2 million people signing up and having 1.4 million of those people actually sticking to it.
Yeah.
That's creating massive change.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I wonder how this January's campaign will go. Obviously with COVID and everything, it'll be interesting to see, won't it?
I think it's going to be a big one. I mean, we're 100% behind them. We have got our teams on the ground, and we're working hard to make it. We've got some big numbers. We've got like our own little targets on our boards about how many signups we're going to get. So let's watch and wait and see how we all go.
Aiming high.
Aiming high and collaborating, with so many other brands as well in the space, which I love, because I think we need to be working together. We're going to have strength in numbers, and to work in silos or on islands is not going to be helpful for our mission.
So alongside running fries, just small part-time job, you run your own blog.
Yeah, I've got a blog called Seed Blog. It's called Seed because I've always said, I think advocacy is about planting seeds. You cannot take responsibility to change somebody's life or habits, but if you can plant a seed and then just let that, maybe help grow that into a bigger plant and eventually maybe into a tree, and just through supporting people through their transition. So Seed Blog was an idea that I had a few years ago, just to put recipes up, things that I had learned on my journey, having plant-based children, going to school, different situations that I had to deal with, plant-based pregnancies. So just little stories, it's just a personal project, a passion project.
So your next project, you're releasing a new book?
I am. I haven't spoken about it much because I've been pretty nervous about it, but I am. I published a book with Penguin in January. I think it'll only be available in the UK in March, but it publishes in South Africa in January. Again, it just happened. I was capturing recipes, sharing them with friends, and it just kind of grew from there. And the book is really all about helping, flexitarians, not vegans, but helping flexitarians to make that transition. A little bit more on supplementing, a little bit more on batch cooking, gut health. So it's a lifestyle book, but it also has 70 or 85 beautifully photographed, chef-tested recipes, but for everyday cooks, like for moms, it's quick, it's easy, it's made using ingredients that you'll probably have in your pantry or in your kitchen. So it's really intended to support people. It also has a meal plans, and each recipe has a guide that will help you to build your own meal plan. So it kind of breaks down the recipe into macros like proteins and carbohydrates and greens and fruits. And you can then build your own meal plans quite easily using that guideline. So it's really intended to support people in their journey. And I think that's what, that's really what I was born to do, is to help people and support them in any way I can, because ultimately I just don't want people eating animals anymore. So I'll do anything I can to fulfill that kind of life purpose.
Oh, so inspirational. And I've had a little sneak peek of the book, actually. It looks beautiful, really nice book. So really excited to see the full copy next. Well, we'll have to wait till March in the UK.
We will. I'll be sending you one. Don't worry.
Thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I think it's just really exciting for us at the moment to be aligning with Live Kindly Collective, and there's some great things happening with the collective. We've come together with Oomph and Like Meat, which are now our sister brands, and we've found a real success in working together. We have a unique difference in that we are going to be growing our own. So we're going to have a seed to table solution where we're growing our own crops that are carbon neutral, carbon positive. We're working very hard to find more sustainable packaging solutions. And then we're working with strategic partners to scale our businesses at a very fast pace, because we really believe that, change needs to happen now. Unfortunately, there is no time left. In the past, I always said, it's okay, you just do it in your own time. But now the urgency it's becoming more urgent. People have to start considering how they live their life and the impact that they're having on the planet and the impact that they're having on their own health even. We're seeing 1 in 2 people with chronic lifestyle disease in the world. That we've never seen that before. I mean, that's just too terrible to think that half of humanity are sick.
Yeah.
And it's because of how we eating our food and how we buy, what the foods we're choosing to put in our mouth and the way we're living our lives. So, there's a lot of urgency here. And so the Live Kindly Collective feels that urgency and wants to make change happen at a much faster rate. So, I think watch the space. Hopefully we can bring a lot of people on board with us and continue to get the amazing support we do from our consumers. And I think I also like to take the opportunity to thank every single person that might be listening to this podcast who eats our products, just to say thank you so much, because I would not be sitting here today and Fries would not be here today if it wasn't for those people who have just been cheering us along all the time, through all the hard times that we've been through as a family and building this company out of our kitchen with really no capital investments at all, just funding it ourselves. So to all of those people, I'd just like to say massive, massive thank you. We could never have done it. So it's really been a team effort from you guys and from us to make it happen.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Tammy, and thank you so much for all the work you do to, saving animals and saving the planet.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks for the opportunity, and I'm sure that when I'm in the UK, we can catch up.
That would be lovely.
Face to face.
Well, that's it for episode 5 of the Simply Vegan podcast. Join me next week when I'll be chatting to Anique Ireland from Immaculate Vegan.